Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to explain a novel full of contradictions. The protagonist's mate is merciless in battle, beating opponents to a pulp. Yet he also has complex feelings for the protagonist, even showing vulnerability at times. This makes me think, what kind of past does this ruthless alpha hide? And can the protagonist protect her status and dignity in this dangerous wolf pack? The Commonwealth Games. The golden hues of the setting sun painted a breathtaking tableau across the treetops, streaking the sky with vibrant reds and oranges. On any other day, I would have paused to admire the beauty, but today, the sight filled me with an overwhelming sense of dread. I had naively assumed my role as Luna merely involved fending off challenges from other females. However, I now found myself compelled to witness a far more gruesome spectacle: Damon, my mate in the pack's alpha, savagely tearing apart any male who dared to challenge his position. This brutal aspect of pack life was apparently deemed too insignificant to mention to me beforehand. Hunter, ever the font of knowledge on pack dynamics, had taken it upon himself to enlighten me further. He explained that if another female managed to defeat me, she would claim the title of Luna, while I would be relegated to the lowest Omega rank. Despite being the alpha's mate, the irony of my potential fall from grace was not lost on me. Conversely, should a male successfully overthrow Damon, the entire pack hierarchy would crumble. Every rank would be nullified, leaving all pack members free to challenge one another for new positions. Even those working in separate pack houses could contest each other's status. Hunter snorted as he described this scenario as a reset button for the pack, emphasizing how unlikely it was for anyone to retain their current rank unchallenged. This system, while capable of plunging the pack into utter chaos and destruction, seemed to be accepted with a disturbing nonchalance. The potential loss of life was treated as a mere inconvenience, a stark reminder of the red blood pack's callous nature. As these thoughts swirled in my mind, I found myself in the stadium of the training center. Every seat was occupied, the harsh spotlights threatening to blind onlookers, and the deafening roar of the crowd assaulting my ears. The air was thick with anticipation and the metallic scent of impatience. I watched glimpses of Damon's attacks, coldly instant and calculated for slashes of his talons, but never could this satisfy my inner dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. Despite his intention of cold murder with every savagery blow, he went easy and only disarmed his friends. First was Caden, who was sent sprawling into the walls the second he ran to him. Then Carter, who suffered a blow to his temple with Damon's elbow when trying to headlock him. Afterwards, Jace a slice of Damon's claws to both calves, following Hunter, kneading his sides savagely. And Antonio at last, but bloodiest, canines to his knees, could have suffered worse. June yawned, clearly amused from the sight of such brutality. I wouldn't have left him with his two legs if I had the chance with him. The crowd was screaming with delight no less, clapping and shrieking on their glorious alpha as he stood before them stained in several others' blood, including his own friends, fisting the hand with his pack's brand highly. I released my breath, which I was unaware of holding. Damon secured the alpha position, and in under 5 minutes and over about 150 competitors. No breaking of his feudal system today. Guess we're stuck with him. I gulped from the thought. He wore no shirt, only regular black pants now tattered with holes, but he shone it no less than any bower worn to war, pounding the air with his blood-dripping fist. A hand shakes my shoulder and I rise to see Leela all shaken up and puffy-eyed. "It's time, my Luna." I nod, gesturing for her to go first with me behind. I was given tickets to front row seats to this horror despite my consistent protest and excuses, doing the best I could to contain my barfing to myself and fainting subside. I squeezed my eyes shut at the bloodiest part to keep the visual from getting committed to memory. Judging me on the crowd's rise of moans and groans, it couldn't have been any prettier than I imagined. I followed Leela down the internal corridors of the stadium to entrance where I had saw Eamon appear. The halls were clear while I untied my black cloak draped over my shoulders. The icy breeze bit at my skin instantly. "Best of luck, my Luna. My loyalty shall always remain with you," she said, gathering the cloak in her arms. Leela was in a loose white dress with her hair thrown to front. Her legs were bare except for the brand new pair of Converses I bought from the duty-free shop in New York and discoloring bruises all over. Like her, I wasn't either dressed appropriate for the weather. Back in yet another smutty excuse of a sport bra, this one providing more support despite having weird bands stretched across my bare back with the usual mesh knee-high tights and black Nikes. My hair was woven into a tight braid from the start of my temple into a high ponytail. Thank you, Leela. I won't disappoint you. She bit her lower lip in an attempt not to cry, but her eyes were glassy even though she had faith. One final squeeze and I was forced to send her away. My nose was runny and maybe my eyes red, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't fail Leela. She had too much hope. How many of these bitches do you think he slept with? I frown. Stop it. This isn't the time. All right. Let me rephrase it. How many do you think he has slept with on numerous occasions? Which is probably going to be his most recent. I say it's that. June, stop. Stop making me sound this helpless. I couldn't have been. I couldn't have been this helpless. I, your Mrs. Nor Faith Romano, the only Luna of the Red Blood Pack. Power is essential here, and you must have a desire for more if you wish to stay on the top. We are very lucky to have you as our Luna. I want people to know I'm the Luna, not ask. Suddenly a rage filled me from the lowest pit of my stomach rather than Red. Xavier, Caden, Grace, in my own words, came back to memory. This rage, it was the rage of determination. This was it, the day I was made for. To prove my worthiness of Luna. I never asked for her to be my mate, just so you know, and the moon goddess above knows. I never wanted her from when I first laid eyes on her, and I never will. For she's a pain in my ass and a waste of space. That's all. My chance to stand up for myself for once. To show I didn't need any alpha. I didn't need Damon in order to protect myself. I could do that myself. I didn't need one babying me. The roaring grew as music to my ears. The pulsing of June's power beating to its beat within each eye. If he's the big bad wolf, then I am the moon he sings to. Feeling the adrenaline surging in my body, I reached the gates to the stadium in time for them to groan open to the people. The lights turn to reflect me, and I see every projector showing a visual of me with crystal golden eyes. Unlike on Damon's arrival, where the people had lost their chill and were yelling on the top of their lungs, he had air hummed from seer quietness. The shrieks gone, not a word muttered. It wasn't until the other gates from the other side creaked open with dozens upon dozens of females file in. Some familiar but mostly not, when some clapping and hollering began. I stand dead center of the stage, awaiting their move. Hunter told me how I was given a choice, either wolf or more human. He explained how a while each had their benefits. One was more harmful than the other, but I had the choice to change in between if I felt I needed it. A blondie with bronze-dilated eyes and spilling boobs was the first to attack. Running up, she flung for my head with a swipe for her feet. I dodged instinctively, and as she turned to swipe again, I made a double kick, kicking her in the side of her head. The crowd shrieked at that. Nice one, but don't get happy just yet. She was much a fighter anyway. Name's Tracy. Dame Anne's personal secretary. June gagged. Guess Dame Anne didn't train her well enough. Don't blame him though. Priorities. One by one they appear some smart enough to team up and try making this more interesting, rather than a game of knock the pinheads out. Unlike Dame Anne, whose vicious intention to kill or at least to severely injury. I play nicer and just go for the straight knock, out blow to the head, as my body does a series of twists, turns and jumps. June does the honors of doing the roll calls. Aha, Knight, Valerie. Ugh, such a bitch, I swear. Ouch, Rebecca. That might leave a scar, but oh well. Damn girl. Get the Sarah hoe. She's beginning to piss me off. Go for the strike. Go for it. Ahaha, yes. What a relief. I'll tell you rice where there was a guy who she hasn't wrapped her legs around. Like so. June carries chattering on, providing unnecessary but interesting gossip on every one of them while I do the series of movements that began to seem no less than a dance show to me. The same old foot patterning and hand motions as my claws slashed clothes, skins and even bones. I could see why warriors say they loved the adrenaline a fight would give up. This stuff was addicting. Well, it was until a certain glaze of someone's toenails to my midsection that was enough to stagger me back a few steps. Stunned, I clutched my stomach, getting a fine trickle of blood oozing over my once again human hand. There stood Stephanie with her dagger, like inhuman nail ray sharp into its tip, silted with my blood. TSK. Some people fail to learn how the best is always saved for last. She circled me, with me clutching my stomach helplessly while eyeing both her and a waiting move. Might want to get that checked out before you bleed to your dead. I'm not anywhere near done with you. She gestured with her head before lunging in my direction, bearing nails first. I'd whirl away, but she charges again, and this time with her feet, taking the ground from beneath me. I was inches from leaping, but at the last second I was tipped over. Stephanie slid her toenail over my cheek, drawing a fine line for a second time before I twist her ankle over. She yelped, trying to pull back. Using her second foot, she slid it across my thigh as she doubled over. I collapsed to one knee, hissing out aloud before I could fully stand. Before I knew it, she was risen and lunging at me. She threw a single punch to my eye and I lost my balance, going flying face first. The crowd was going wilder than before, probably hyperventilating from the probability of Stephanie ruling as Luna aside Damon. Maybe in a way it were for the best. I would be out of the picture as this tax Luna cased it out into the shadows away from Damon, and perhaps even so forgotten that I could return home, while on the other hand, Stephanie would get her lifelong ticket with Damon with reign as Luna. Just what we both desired. But what risk? Weighting each side to this equation, I find the side of me lose the heavier consequence. My failure would no doubt result with Stephanie as the victor. But the question was not of now. What would she recede as Luna? My head on a spike. Definitely on her too, duelist as Luna. But what would be of the pack? Surely Damon's no female ruling policy would stand, but again would it with Stephanie involve? Aside this, I also had to weight the factor of how many people it'd be letting down. The numbers were high to list, but I knew each and every one of them by name. The blurring subsides, and I hear the buzz of the crowd form back into the chanting of the pack. Stephanie drops to her knees and takes my neck in her hands. Fabulous. She liked to strangle me to my death. I seize her wrists weakly as I could in mock defeat, her merciless eyes sparking with more than just determination. It seemed like ages. The crowd's roars echoing and rolled and blended into one to my ears before she withdrew and tossed me to my side. Knowing her, she'd won a grander end game. One that would be able to haunt children for generations. Doubled over, choking and rubbing my neck. I feel her foot tilt me onto my back, feeling my breathing tighten with each breath I drew. Stephanie surveyed me from above with an amused grin, licking my blood from her fingertips. My wit's that saying those foolish humans use. Oh yes, how the tables have turned. I admonished she wouldn't last long. She brought the hilt of her painted nail on the patch of skin, right between each of my breasts where my heart should have been. At first she merely stroked it. That was until she began to bury it under my skin. That's it. I jerk her ankle, twisting it as if it were a wet rag, making her collapse with a loud gasp. Hustling back to my feet, I see her lips crease downwards with finger brushing the trickle of blood leaking from her lips' edge. That's what you get for trying to touch my tits. June blew at her imaginary nails before motioning back her hair. June could have worn a crown encrusted with a million assortments of dime, and while driving around in a Porsche filled with puppies with a sign saying I don't fuck with you and did know not to question it. For I knew what made June who she is. Somehow Stephanie had managed to get her hands on vaguely familiar torn batons of what I think I saw some other competitor have. Her fists staining white as she bared her claws. Wonder when those came. I note. She twirled them in circles before coming at me. I block the first few swings, dodging with my forearms, but one managed to slip and reach my stomach. I could feel the wood rattle and ricochet off my skin, but I kept my head high for the most, trying it not to get to me. My arms growing tired, so I switched to my feet, throwing some decent aims at her head, but she was swifter than that, dancing side to side. Luckily, one had gotten past her guard, making the wood go fumbling out her grip. I strike again, harder than the last, my toe coming in contact with not only wood. I hear the cracking of her wrist and the following shriek. I look out. June reacting my feet to jump as Stephanie attempted to use one of the fallen shard of wood to stab my thigh. I leap, tugging my toes under as I go, landing right atop her outstretched calf. This is for spreading your filthy feet over others, mate, and taking them to warm bed with you, cow. June snarled. Together in a hole. We must have heard over hundreds of bones break throughout the night, with us as the primary cause, but hearing Stephanie ass was different. It was like hearing the sounds of raindrops after months of scorching sun, for it was just as refreshing. Stephanie howling from pain, doubled over crying as I heard the final shrieks of the crowd. I had earned this. Ahem. We've earned this, June corrected. We've just stole the show. Your wait. Unable to hear my own thoughts. My breaths began to go raspy and hard to form as I was suddenly overwhelmed with the urge to get out of here. My Luna, Nora, Caden and Hunter were pushing their way through to medical crew, calling and running towards me, but it was too late. My knees bucked over as I fell onto all four, my first sprouting out of each pore and brushing the air as I go sprinting out past them into the heart of the forest. Gladly they had the sense not to follow, for the last thing I wanted was to outrun both of them. I had caused that back there. I hurt all those members, even if it was for my survival. I was no less than Eamon in a way. Somehow, I had lost myself so much I never realized the direction I was running until coming across a road and spotting a glorious structure of silver, two luminous reflecting gates on the other side. I paddle my way in ever so slowly, not eager to get through and go to the structure I now called home. June surprisingly willingly hands back control with no questions asked and recoils silently back into her space hub in the back of my mind. Strangely, this time I awake to my human fingers. I find myself fully dressed in the same grimy, sweaty outfit. June draws my eye to the sound to water running upstairs from the bedroom. All the lights were off except for the table lamps for the first two rooms at my sides. No one's here but us, June stated, with one outstretched bloody claw. I head upstairs into the door of the room as softly as I could. The door was parted enough to see the line of lights of the bathroom open, with the door widely open. I shove aside the door, drawing my claws back to my regular fingers to the dimly lit room. At the running sink, Damon stood shirtless, hissing and cursing as he failed in reaching to cleanse the bleeding open wound on his lower back. How could you fail to tell me this? I questioned June. Blood was oozing out a furious rate. It was shocking to see him still standing. There was a heavy repugnant scent odor of silver lingering in the air, sickening my stomach. Need some assistance? I must have been too cruel to be kind, especially to myself. Damon looked up in the mirror in my direction, his eyes condensing with traces of gold. Being hunched over, I could see the flex in his bulging muscles and the wounds more easily. He had about roughly 4 major gashes that were of great concern and needed attention. His Adam's apple bobbed, making him hang his head before nodding. I walk over, creeping past Damon's chest and avoiding colliding into him on my end to gather the stuff scattered over the countertop, gesturing over to the bed on my way out. Sweat, blood. Silver was reeking off him, but yet I found him something interesting, different in his appeal. Sit, I order, and he takes a seat at the edge of the bed, his back towards me. I rest my body on a single folded knee as I wet the cotton with alcohol. The cotton slits from my fingers onto his wound, making his shoulder blade rise, the muscle tensing up, allowing my hand to rest on the edge of his clammy shoulder. I feel his body loosen with my touch. Some bastard managed to sneak and Silver attached to his claws, he explained, sounding awfully exhausted. Already done attending to his first 2 wounds, cleaning, applying some enriched greasy ointment and bandaging it up. It was starting to nicely come together. The blood was as furiously leaking. HED live. I catch his head circle back from my stew, which I merely nod understandably. Damon cleared his throat in pursuit to try speaking again despite exhaustion wearing his face. How do you learn to work with these sort of injuries with such efficiency? He asked with legitimate amazement, his fingers motioning towards the gauze dressing at his shoulder blade. Sometimes you'll be horrified at what life can require you to learn. Sometimes with one's guidance and without. My voice wavered and broke off at the end from the memory. The battle years ago in which Xavier was so severely injured. Unable to heal and no medical attention, near that old rickety cottage with me the only conscious one being compelled to stitch up his torn torso as he nearly bled to his death. Life seemed so intimating and overwhelming in those minutes. I swore I'd take up first, aid classes the second we were rescued. The faint reminder still on Xavier's skin to this day haunts me. My traitorous eyes and tonal sound caused Damon to twirl around and face me. He studied my face hoping to get answers to terribly vague reply. His eyes trailed from mine to the dry flow of blood at my temple and chest. With his brows heavily furrowed, Damon said, "You need to be attended to as well." Taking the discarded ball of cotton, he torn a generous amount and soaked it heavily. Damon worked with great caution, being sure to not accidentally apply any more than aided on any of the external wound. I sat in quiet while his fingers did their magic, working through every square inch of my skin in a highly agile manner. I winced, flinching back with my hands going to stop his when he first brought the alcohol-rinsed cotton to the cut at my cheek gash. At first he looked as if he had been struck, clueless about how to react, but he had regained almost instantly. He brought my hands down and began working once more precise measures. I continued to grimace every now and then as he carried on cleaning the surrounding area with an alcohol swab, fighting the urge to scream. "You fought remarkable well. Like a true she-wolf you were meant to be." I allow my eyes to drift, my voice near to gone from wanting to cry more than ever. "How would you know?" I ask hoarsely. "You weren't here. You never saw me once in that arena. Nor do you know how I was feeling after doing what I did back here. UK, no nothing. Don't say that." Damon whispered, leaning forward and taking my hair with his unsickly yet lovingly grasp. "Don't you think? You'll never know you felt back there." Dylan showed me what June saw, what she saw and you felt. What you saw and felt. June knew and so did Dylan. I saw everything down that bond. He placed a finger under my chin and brought it up to his, the longing mess and disbelief deepening his eyes, along with the shimmering gold and crescents. I saw everything. I was suddenly sick. My voice was choked and I knew damn well it was. I pushed him aside, tears swelling at the corners of my eyes. "Nora, just stop. Stop, please. Stay away from me." I climb off the bed, away from Damon's reach. "Nora," Damon called behind me. "No, just no. No," I cry, halting him. "Damn it, Nora. Will you hear me out?" "Okay. What's wrong with you?" Damon yelled, following after me as I moved towards the door. Grabbing my arms, Damon forced me to meet his face that I was trying to avoid. "What's with it to you? Why don't you get some shank to warm yourself with?" That's something you're quite exceptionally well at doing, as well as manipulating others' emotions about what to think of you. I shriek back, feeling June's power emitting to my trembling eyes. In the dark, I could see his expressionless face like the freezing of the hour hands on a clock. His bipolar manner is wolfen then him. Along with my ambivalent emotions towards them were either going to be the death of me or reason why I chances are going to be bald. "Let me go. I've had enough of your wicked games of playing with my heart. At times, you either care so much it tells my heart to forcefully love you, but then, in a blink you change, and do something to shatter my trust in you entirely. I have had enough. Way too much to bear in these few weeks. Why did you even come into my life if you wanted to cease my faith in love? I hate you, Alpha Damon Romano, for everything you've done." He shut me off with a seal of his lips. The saltness of my tears made their way down to my lips, filling both of our mouths, gentler than any of our previous kisses. He caressed my cheek along with my hair, making my skin feverish wherever his fingers roamed my bare skin. His lips never forcefully parted mine. Never bit. Never did anything Damon would have had done before. He merely held my lips with his. Brushing it ever so softly, it drove me crazy, and with nothing other than my anguish forming in the back of his throat. I found myself savoring the way I clutched his shoulder, the way he tilted my head to pull me closer, the way his hand stroked my torafraid to let go and loose me. This was most truthfulness I've ever felt with him, honestly speaking. Whether cutting me off by taking my lips with his was another one of his depictions. I can say I felt badly. Again. 40 the wander. The broken. The helpless and pawn. His lips were a mixture of sweat, tears and anguish. The way he had sucked my lips raw and slid his tongue into my mouth was the sensation of pure bliss. One hand woven in the midst of my hair, holding me in place. His hand carefully taking its precious time and gliding over my back down to my rear and over, curving over and under. Taking slow breaths in between to catch our breath, I allow myself to absorb the moment to the full. I asked, taking my fingers in his dangerously dark locks. A growly ruts in the back of his throat, and were pushed onto the surface of closet wall. I feel one of his hand warm against my neck while the other went over my rear again, hoisting me on to the dresser's top. The stuff goes sprawling over, either crushed by our weight or broken from going over and meeting the floor. Unable to resist myself, I dare Damon's mouth to explore more than my mouth, leading him downwards to the arch where his mark lay awaiting. He bites the area with his teeth, sending a wave of heat to flush over, and as he strokes it with his lips, building up the heat, I release the muffled moan I was desperately opposing to let go. It were as if I were taking a whiff of some rave drug that intensified the effects of Damon's touch, making the agonizingly slow pain worth pleasurable. It certainly was addicting, the feeling of our partially without clothes body creating enough steam for both of us to have a thin layer of glistening sweat already. A finger of his slips down to the band of my tights, tugging it downwards just until the band of my underwear was in full view when I break the lip lock abruptly. What is it? His voice was heavily slurred, the words coming out as one. You want this. Damon coaxed huskily, going to my neck for a peck before nuzzling his chin deeper. No. I say lowly as if it were to myself. Fuck. What had I done? No, Damon. I whisper, and I knew he heard, for he had looked at me as if I had grown horns. And not ready. Not yet, and especially after all that's happened with me in the alleyway back in New York. Look, all the loving affection was ceased. He recoiled his hands with a loudly exasperated grunt. I remained half-seated on the dresser as he sent his fist rampaging into the wall next to my ear. I don't flinch. Damon. He refused to even look at me, even when balling up a fistful of my hair and dragging me off in the direction of the bed, heaving me face first into the bed. I feel my cheek gash rip reopen, glazing my fingers. It comes back spotted with scarlet. What the? You're not the only one demanding answers. June orders, feeling her power beginning to resurface under my skin. You better be ready when I come back. Damon threatened dangerously with his rich ink eyes, snapping his fingers at me. My body won't be found dead with yours. Forget about being ready for you to molest. I spit before laughing madly. June's enraged potential giving a higher newfound leverage to boast my morality with. This was a characteristic I just adored about June. She could go from sweet and loving to sickly brutal in a heartbeat. I could tell Damon knew it was me, but June speaking. My mouth. An other's voice. My June's voice. He approaches us, obviously pissed, pinching my cheek with his outstretched claws tip. I could feel the blood rushing to the area and threatening to pour out beneath when he muttered lowly, or else be forced by my own ways. With that, he rises, tossing my bloody cheek aside and leaving me helplessly dumped on the bed, heading to the door. I knew it. I cried softly, gathering the sheets in my fist as June's control left. Glancing up, I find Damon halted by the door as if he had heard. I never asked for her to be my mate, just so you know, and the moon goddess above knows. I never wanted her from when I first laid eyes on her, and I never will. For she's a pain in my ass and a waste of space. That's all. Each and every word of that memory stabbed my heart a dozen times over. and I silently prayed he heard and felt that fool of a heart of mine break. Tears were establishing, ready to fall at the blink when I closed my eyes. They hadn't even greeted the sheets when a loud sound, almost as a gunshot sounded from the hall out our bedroom. Damon was already out the room, the door thrown open from his departure. I advance on out as well, wiping the blood away from my cheeks with my bare palm. Leela, what happened? I stepped from behind Damon, who was standing in the center of the hall, towering over her with his hands crossed over one another, crouching onto the floor beside her. My Alpha. She nodded in his direction. My Luna. Nothing to worry. I just got a bit dizzy and my foot slipped. Nothing too serious. I reached out to her ankle, holding her gaze cordially with mine. And you shall be punished accordingly. Damon spoke with icy indifference, muscles still bulging from his hands being crossed. What the hell are you talking about? She fell okay. No rules broken from what I see, I said irritably. He motions to the broken vase shattered on the ground behind us with his cruel lies. You got to be kidding me. Have you lost it? It was a mistake, damn it. This could have happened from anyone, and they would have been punished just as sentenced. Damon replies ever so coolly, evading my lingering gaze. He can't be serious. Tell me HES not please. June questions optimistically. Even by me. I dare to ask lowly for our ears alone, rising up before him and shuffling gaze, finally acknowledging me standing before him. Damon glances down to me, not budging from his fixed rigid posture that was intended to give the impression of the person before you. I dare to meet his electrifying gaze. Being this close up again, the memory of my lips locked with mine only seconds ago made his lips suddenly came across as welcoming. You called. Caden approaches the hallway, leaving hardly enough room for any of us. Hunter was now crouched down, still in his worn sweats and straining shirt, talking in a low tone with Leela assuring and checking her sprain. Caden appears behind me. Here he stood, awaiting. What is it? Will some say something for fuck's sake? Damon held his gaze with me as he spoke with less to no remorse directed to him. Leela here will be given 50 whips for breaking such a breaking antique piece worth thousands of dollars, and I required both. Hunter and you here for it. From Hunter slouched on the ground besides a weeping Leela, to a clueless Caden, we all interexchanges glances of disbelief with one another. Oh, moaned you. They'll pay. Okay. It's about the money. The thousands of dollars. They'll pay from my pocket. I shout loudly, wishing I could slap him in the face with the stacks of bills. You just name it. It's not about the money, but rather the lesson. Damon interjected sharply, standing all poised if you were at a dinner. More like for your fetish with sadism. June snorts using my mouth, stalking away from and towards Leela. We have a strict law here for damaging others' property. Damon frowns, disregarding June without a second glance. I'm not done. I want Hunter to be the one to administer it. Leela wailing grew louder despite trying to muffle it with her palm. Damon. Caden was the one to yell louder than I, stalking up in attempt to pacify him. Better Caden than I considered, for it showed Damon his true spot in this petty hellhole of his. Hunter's a promising member. Damon shushes, not even hearing a single word. And I know he'll make the right decision, turning his deceptive eyes towards Hunter. Either you do it and show me what a promising Delta you are capable of being, or face being convicted with treason and be exiled from this pack, living as a hunted rogue for the rest of your life. Or I could make her the hunted rogue if you do prefer. Consider these three given option with caution. Reconsider even if you must. As if on cue, another dark figure loomed in the back behind Hunter and Leela. My wolf vision confirms it as the figure is Carter, in his usual shady pants and shirt, but he hadn't come alone. Carter, leave. I growl at the sight of him, recognizing the long leathery rope, like weapon, casually coiled within the face of his palm. Give it to Hunter, said Damon, fixed eyes on me as I glance back at him, twirling my head around. I catch Hunter ascending and with trembling hands take the whip from Carter. looking slightly more annoyed as if this were everyday drama. Carter passes it gladly. Leela's wailing receded into more of a sob, half muffled by her own hand. She looked smaller than I ever seen her, sprawled on the ground awaiting her fate, with her face a sheer blend of sweat and tears. "Don't do this, Hunter." Kaden say something. I shake my head at this injustice, anticipating some type of interference from anyone. Carter was leaning against the wall chewing on what looked as chewing gum, Hunter looking as if he were about to retch, Leela looking as if she were to pass out shortly, and Kaden teat in thought and wide-eyed watching this horror unfold besides Damon. Damon, standing proudly, his eyes flickering between gold and black. "June, can you get to Dylan the surface?" I demand desperately. "He can stop everything. Don't you think I know that already? What do you think I've been doing all this time? Certainly not making popcorn for myself to cuddle up with," June scolded. H is locked within his mind. Ugh, fuck. Fuck ity fuck. I can't reach him, damn it. "Damon, if you can hear me," I call down out Bond. I catch his eyes hitch, shifting from behind me to me. "Please, stop. Please end this madness. Just call all this off and I'll do anything you say. I promise I won't argue, scream, or even say anything. I'll do anything you order me to." The dreadful cackle of the whip was what paused me from saying the unmentionable. The whip was brought down again, more urgently than the last. I hadn't had the time to recover from the first. "No, stop. Hunter RR. I run to the Leela sprawled in a pool of stale blood when Kaden sped from behold me down. His hands were drawn as a remorseful band of steel. I couldn't twist away from. I could sense the weakness in them when I tried pulling away, but they were firm enough to weak to my knees. "Please, let me go." One after another it carried. No end in sight. I caught Damon after about 3 of the lashes, watching in front with cold feline amusement. Hints of boredom even. Written all over his ass face resembled face. Seeing no difference between him and the dictators of today, I cried out loud for the faith of this pack. For every last members tormented by the hands of their alpha. For Leela passed out on the ground in a pond of her very own blood, and for Hunter who won't be able to forgive himself after this. For Kaden left watching helplessly from the sidelines. For my remaining existence here. The memory of Damon and I shared seconds ago in the back of my head. I hate him. 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 I hate him. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him, and I was going to kill him one of these days because of it. Collapsing my unsteady knees to the ground, knowing it'd never be the same. "Amen," was all the reply I got back. 41 the skeletons of not so long ago. There wasn't an inch of my body that was not screaming in protest. Seeing all that blood dripping from the dreaded end of that whip, seeping the walls and spattered over Hunter, was gruesome enough to make a grown man pause. Let aside give a 16-year-old body aches. Damon was here for the entire time, looking somewhat satisfied by Hunter but annoyed from the time he was taking in between lashes. I didn't know how Hunter would sleep after this. Probably nightmares of the incident causing him to have restless nights for now on. God bless his poor soul. After finally hitting 50, Hunter had fell to his knees, trying to get Leela to stir, moan, or give any indication she was still breathing. She gave none, but after checking her pulse from the side of her sweaty neck, he gave a relieved sigh. Damon had went past them both, hardly any more indifferent than he ever was, ordering Carter to get someone gaze here to clear the mess before stomping down the stairway, not once stopping to see the damage he had done behind. The way Leela was crippled by Fleslie had enraged me beyond expected. Surprisingly, though, I went quietly with Kaden when he wrapped my arm over his neck to hoist myself up. I didn't once let my eyes wander nor blink from the sight. Even as Kaden led us to the way to bedroom. The bedroom was worse than the hallway. Its tunk of blood, silver, sweat and long dry desperation. My first instinct were to run. An uneasy wave of nausea swarmed the content of my stomach. My breathing hitched from the déjà vu as if I were being suffocated in my own body. Kaden seemed to notice, his brows furrowing, Nora, it's all right. Just breathe calmly. Everything will be fine. Jay, just leave me. I exhaled, taking the seat on the bed's edge. Just breathe as easily as you can manage while I go fetch that figlio di puttana ante and I. You won't be doing anything of that sort. You'll be fine. Leave me now. I objected after swallowing some heavy gulps of air. Nora, just do as I say, Damned. No Rossi. Just. No one. Leave. I said now tiredly. No energy left over to interrogate anymore with anyone. I secretly prayed he caught the hint in my tone to shut up without me saying, "I'm sorry you had to see that, Nora. I truly am." He sounded sincerely remorseful. I didn't know to whether to fall or not. You're not the type of person who should be getting used to seeing stuff like that. You deserve more than that. You deserve more than to be locked in your own room like a prisoner. He averted his H.S. ordered me lock the door on my way out, but I'd want to Nora. I want to stay with you, but Damon has my hands tied with Hunter. Don't say any more. Just do it. I've grown used to it by now. I informed him. His eyes deepened with sympathy, resting a hand on my back before heading and locking the door behind him. The lock tumbled into place. I slid down my back, rubbing against the edge of the bed, crippling myself on the ground, cradling my knees to my chest and curling up into a ball. Hot tears swelled my eyes and I was unable to see. Everything in the room blurred into one. No one entered. Hours ticked by in blinks. Nightfall came after an eternity. Maybe it were for the best to leave me in my solitude, because that there was nothing dangerous on this planet than a hurting she-wolf crying out for the blood of revenge to the moon goddess. After burying my face into the bowls of my knees, I rose my parched eyes to see the radiant white blades of the moon's rays shimming in a pool of translucent silver in the dark. Crawling on the floor with the softest part of my palm, I inched towards it, hauling my dead feet below me, basking in the fluorescent beams with glassy eyes. A single drop trickled down the face of my cheek onto the stale ground, where it twinkled in the glorious shafts, as if it were the gem of the world. I should have destroyed my heart when I had the option, so it wouldn't have hurt this much. Maybe. You should have. I never asked for her to be my mate, just so you know, and the moon goddess above knows. I never wanted her from when I first laid eyes on her, and I never will. For she's a pain in my ass and a waste of space. That's all. Even in the depth of my mind. His traitorous sly bitter words were on a constant rearing. Sleep never came, nor did my eyes close. Laying coldly, still in my grimy attire from the games on the floor of my bedroom in the exact position of the night before when lounging in the presence of the moon goddess, lost on the train of thought somewhere in my head. Frankly, I don't remember when my eyes caught the coldness of Flora luring me to indulge, or when I decided to stretch out my stiff calves and salty palms, laying lifelessly sprawled on the ground as Leela had done, the memory of her seeming to be unforgettable. It was when some gentle tapping, about 3 continuous rapid knocks, when my train swerved and crashed into a heap ton of crap, blinking the effect off. I rubbed my eyes to soothe the dryness with the flats of my fingertips. Luna Nora, Carter's deep sensational voice crooned. Beta K, you have exactly 10 seconds to haul your ass away before I wrench off your fucking penis off and staple it to your forehead. June roared abruptly. No doubt she was undergoing my pain with me, so I left her as she was in her state, agitated as any elderly woman, obnoxious as any teen defied by their parent, but internally devastated. Like she had sold the dearest part of her soul to the devil, knowing she'd never get back. The other side of the door went awfully cold. There was a brief muffle of footsteps, scurrying off in the opposite direction away from the room, and I knew for a fact he was gone, never to come back after my forewarning. Not quite the dumb ass we'd mistaken him for. Iced cough. June had disappeared into oblivion. Resting my eyes for a second, I hear the doorknob rattle for a split second. There was no knock as the door was sprung open. You know, the door was unlatched since 6 in the morning. Cade unrested himself by the threshold, crossing his arms, looking at the doorknob. Though he wore cleaner clothes and his hair was tousled, I knew by now looks could be deceived. He hadn't slept a minute. Dark circles inked under his lids confirmed it. He appeared just as unrested and distressed. I heard, but I didn't care any less. I said impassively, hauling myself up. He trudged in, transferring the weightiness in his walk. Heard about your pleasant encounter with Carter moments ago. His lips twitched. He appeared rather troubled. Just thought you'd know. I and have possibly wondered why. Wouldn't call it pleasant. You're ugly. I leaned on a hand forward with my calves crossed behind, appearing as composed as I could muster without collapsing. I didn't leave a breath open for interrogation, and I don't intend to either. My eyes started to meet his. He shook his head at me, outstretching a hand and heaving me up. I'm glad you're finally learning on how to behave here. About time I'd say, but again, it's never too late, then sorry. He winked, motioning for me to take a seat on the bed. Up close, not just his clothing but his mouth also reeked of alcohol and cigars. Flirty remarks aside, his face hardened. Don't give him the impression you wouldn't threaten his family air creators if you had the choice. Or else, he won't spare the chance to crawl under your skin again. Gliding my hands back and forwards over the sheets, I thought, why are you here, Cain? You wouldn't come here to praise me. Come again. You wouldn't come unless you wanted something done or wanted to tell me something about Damon or his past that would haunt me. Fuck, Carter. I want to know your intentions. Nora, darling. He shook his head disapprovingly, leaning against the far wall by the bathroom, a fairly good distance away, crossing his arms. You've mistaken me now as the enemy. Do tell me then, Caden. You're the beta and childhood best friend. The alleged brother of my biggest enemy. I pointed out, narrowing my eyes. Why wouldn't I consider you as one? That enemy claiming to be dissociated with is your mate Nora. He raised an eyebrow as a matter of fact, plastering my best poker face. My eyes bore into his. I'll start treating him as my mate the day he decides to put on his big boy panties and starts respecting me as the fucking Luna I was meant to be. Until then, why would anything matter? Caden took the silence to study my face, boring his eyes to seep through the facade he assumed I held up. What did he know of how my hatred was beyond the point of resolving? Of how my blood rose from the thought he had changed, or had the ability to? How he had tricked me into trusting him after knowing his infidelity with his supposed ex, Stephanie. How he falsely acted as if he was enraged and wanted to save me back in the alleyway back on New Year's. It made me want to skin myself alive in the scorching sun, knowing how his fingers had traced my skin and how he kissed me as if it were mean anything to him. Not only was his sympathy with those orphanous Cam, Dame Ang's malicious behavior was another problem. He tore apart his own pack's warriors and members to maintain his dominance and to satisfy his ego without showing the least bit of repentance. How can anyone with an actual functioning heart understand that level of coldness he was emitting? I've not only come here to give a personal invite to my place tonight and to hopefully shed some light on this whole mess. Caden averted his eyes. Have you now? And here I was expecting you wanted to have tea and discuss about the treading ways to decapitate a head. My sarcasm goes unaccounted. The rigid features of his face told me something was bothering him. He arose, beginning a slow pace towards the middle of the room. Nora, you know me and Damon aren't related by blood. He murmured lowly, glaring my inappropriate eye roll aside. Hunter, though, isn't always will be my youngest brother. That you're very aware of and sure. And Leela. He awaited a breath worth of time. His impatient pacing made me somewhat fidgety and palms clammy. I shut my gaping mouth, pressing my palms together anxiously. What about her? No response. He continued to march in roundhouse, avoiding to meet my eyes at all cost. Caden, I admonished dangerously, seeing him refusing to speak. What about her? Caden swore. He froze in between steps, staring with disbelief before clearing his throat. Leela, she's our younger sister. WHA, I knew but Hunter and Leela didn't. They still don't to this day. She can't be. She's nothing like you. You're lying. Nora, I'm not lying. Give me one reason I would. Our parents had her given up for being too agile and weak right after birth. It wasn't her fault even. How could it be anyone's fault? Our dad, he gritted his teeth. Our father wasn't one fond of the weak or of having a daughter. Our mother was always obstinate. Her amnesia always getting the best of her. She couldn't remember anything for long. I was about 3 and Hunter wasn't even 1 yet. We couldn't do anything. I was helpless. Lila was given to some of the lowest rank of Ongeza. And yes, believe it, there are ranks amongst those wretched son of a bitches too. He spat, laughing nervously. An emotion, supposedly guilt, deepened the rigid nest to his characteristics. She was raised by them, luckily taken in by some of the more generous ones without them even knowing her true identity of being part of one of the higher ranks. That she was the Beta's only daughter. If they were to know, she wouldn't have spared the generosity they were offering, and I made sure that they didn't know, even if it meant defying my father's orders. It was the most I could do as her older brother. His fist curled into balls, anger firing in his orbs. Our bastard of a father wasn't expecting her to even live the week. Hed abandoned the thought of her existence as if she weren't his very own blood. A disposed piece of trash. Now imagine, did his dread seeing her breathing and alive on his deathbed as his administering Omega. His face was priceless, so drained of blood it caused the very heart attack that killed him. I made sure he caught sight of her when he was on death's bed, and also that he knew who she was when I had brought her in to be appointed to his side. Even if meant that Leela didn't know that the man in front of her for whose she'd be caring was her father. The father had discarded his own daughter on the day of her birth without a fair chance to life. And you cared not to tell her. You let her suffer all that she has. All the beating she's sustained. Those bruises on her body. The assaults. After all these years. You now what? You're Isakaden. Just as mentally sick as everyone else in damned pack. All you care about is the ranks. Status. Girls, and that's why you spent all those years cowering under Damon's ass. I shouted, my anger getting the better of me. The thought of a newborn being thrown between 2 rival wolf dens was sickening. Even in a pack as such. You sat in the sidelines watching her being devoured by the pack you so protect and defend. You just watched from the shadows when instead you could have done something about it. And now you stand in front of me like a victim. If I were her, it'd be damned before knowing what a monster I have for a brother. I spat. I wasn't worried about myself, Nora, and nor did I cower. I'm telling you all this because I didn't know what the heck I was doing all these years, keeping not only my emotions suppressed but Hunter's as well when I thought I was doing the right thing. What we think may be right at one point isn't always best option available. You should know that. You think Damon's the monster of your life and that despising him is the rightest thing you could ever do. But it isn't necessarily the best choice. You're hurting yourself more in the process. I'm telling you this because Damon's doing the exact same now. HES still hurting from when the title was given to him at the NIIV age of 14. 6 years ago. Sometimes holding on gives more pain than letting go, Caden. And for providing such a pathetic excuse on the behalf of your respectful brother. It's not a valid reason. Putting up sexist rules about females. Hurting all those people in the name of sport. I chopped from the image of Damon in the stadium with the blood of his pack staining his body. Let me guess. Caden calculated, motioning his head in thought. You haven't finished his mother's diary, have you now? How do you know about it? I tried to keep the alarm in my tone subsided. Confusion getting the better of me until it hit me. After all this time, always. Who did you think gave it in the first place? Caden questioned, raising an eyebrow. Why the writ pages? I inquired gravely. My inner book nerd growing highly enraged from the thought of someone tampering with a book. Although he did get my Harry Potter reference. That's a first. Would you be able to read about how life was absolutely horrifying it was for his mother? How when Damon's first word were mama. His mother was beaten by her mate Damon's father for learning how to say mama than Otto. How she was dying to remain optimistic, not only her sake, but Damon's. Besides, Caden cleared his throat, tugging at his jacket, preparing to leave. You didn't need to read all that. You needed to know the key parts to understand. I had fallen short of words, and Caden took notice. Finish it. Then only will you see things clearer than they really are. Caden headed to the door. Everything aside, you missy nerd pants will be coming to my party tonight. I won't take any excuse. You're coming. Daemon or not. You have to. I bit my lower lip impatiently. What's it about? I ask sacred lie. Don't know whether to dread why I asked her, making it sound as if I were to come. Now, don't you trust your beloved ally? He drawled with a mischievous glint in his eyes. The final pages. No third. Dear diary, life can be just as cruel as breathing, taking. I know that too well from experience. I've seen my family torn limb by limb, their throat greatly slit and hanging from a single vein, their blood drained out onto the white porcelain floor of the only home I ever knew and grew up in. I've witnessed my mate isolate himself from me and his son crying for the security of his father's arms, a sentiment I cannot provide. I felt my breath being stolen and my heart die a little from both occasions. Why must bad things happen only to me? When have I wished anyone any wrong? Why had my baby ever done to anyone? I lost my family, close friends, beaten now, my baby. A week. Only a week left. By the end of this week, my baby girl was meant to see the world with her own beauty eyes, to meet her older brother, laying in a cold hospital bed, writing this with a wobbling, unsteady hand. How could I be doing this? I must be stronger than I take myself granted for. Rocco was beyond mad, thrashing the entire room before the doctor could begin murmuring the words, before raging out of the place with murderous-looking eyes. Out for blood. I see the hurt behind them. I knew he held me accountable for being unable to hold our baby, even if it were during an attack of the enemy pack. Daemon watched as helplessly as he always ever did, sensing an undying tension and curling up with me on the bed. I thanked the moon goddess for Daemon and his safety of getting out from the war zone, with only a minor gash on his cheek. He never cried, wind, fidgeted, grimaced, or showed any emotion as the doctor tugged the stitches into place before my eyes, the orbs of my universe freezing, ever so slowly. He sat undeniably still for a 2-year-old being poked repeatedly with a needle. I'm more concerned for him than anyone at the point. I fear he'd separate himself so much. He wouldn't be able to identify the man he was intended to become. I'd never want him to grow in his father's footsteps, and become someone who would deliberately choose to cause harm and hurt those who he loves. While on one hand I desired death, on the other I couldn't afford to lose him. To lose the sole purpose of my existence when, on the contrary, he can't afford to lose me either, who were to look after my angel if I ceased to breathe. Jan 19th, dear diary. Daemon's 3rd birthday today. As he grows, I can see more of his father's reflection, not in appearance alone. He thrives for detachment, even in such a young age of 3. There are days he hardly leaves his room, so lost in his own world of play he can't remember the time of day unless I come to warn him for something like mealtime, or time to take a bath. He spends hours in his bedroom, alone. I hardly see him except for dinner time. I've also noticed something else odd. How his pace suddenly quickens whenever he spots Rocco, usually hurrying away in the opposite direction of him like running from a life, threatening from a life. How Daemon becomes oddly mum around Rocco, avoiding all possible eye contact as if his eyes could cut through his hollow bridges. How his eyes shot accusingly in his direction whenever Rocco inquiries about his training to him. They grow further and further apart day by day, and I couldn't see any resolution in sight. Father and son. Maybe it were the best to separate them both, but what could I possibly do about his sudden interest of solitude? I can't blame him entirely either. I myself was too equally to blame. I had withdrawn myself from the time of the miscarriage, shattering myself to the grievousness whenever the memory stung. Nonetheless, my angel had been alone since last November, and I failed to tend to him in that time of need. Maybe from my neglect, I had triggered the start of one of many things I'd regret. that Damon has already accepted the insanity over his father. June's second Dear Diary. Camilla has just left. She had arrived just as I had finished picking the clothes from the line in the back lawn. Departing the basket in the kitchen, we sat in the back porch under the scorching sun when she told me. Camille's pregnant again, but this time with a baby girl. I was happy for her and Nathan, but I couldn't quite understand why she told me before anyone, even Nathan. We were friends again, but I still failed to see to the bigger picture here. Maybe it was my paranoia getting the better of me, or jealousy. I couldn't tell them apart now, but why would I not be? She was able to give Nathan the family he was yearning for, 3 sons, and now the cherry on top. A daughter, a baby girl, one I lost not too long ago. I know this might sound like one of those Criminal Mind cases. An entry of a delusional woman on the hunt to kill unborn babies from sleeping pregnant women because of one she lost herself. You can't see me, but I'm laughing at the thought of me hunched over a bench grinder sharpening knives in broad daylight, whistling to myself with a hooded cloak draped over my head. I would never harm Camilla, not even in my dreams. She had a better life than me, than anyone else I knew. She had the perfect life, perfect husband mate, perfect kids, perfect house, perfect pack, just perfect overall. I couldn't be any happier for her. At least one of us had everything we dreamed for. February 14th. Dear Diary. Today's the day Nora was born. Camille's and Nathan's baby girl. I've never seen Camilla's eyes swell so much from happiness at the sight of her wailing girl. Nathan again was shedding tears just as much as Camilla. Maybe even more. Me and Rocco went running the second Nathan called us over, just as Camilla's water broke. Damon sat on my right with Rocco on my left, neither of them fidgeting. I thought hope for Damon would come the day hell would freeze over, but today after holding Nora his eyes brightened. He was curiously staring transfixed at her as if she was the world's strangest puzzle. HES held babies before, so this was a first, but there was a bond attaching them, an arousal that drew him to her. Everyone in the room, Nathan, Rocco, Camilla and I all took notice. Camilla, being the one to pop the bubble of silence, spoke of her desire for them being mates. Nathan, as always, hopped on board, cheerfully telling Rocco how that would be the moon goddess's best ship ever invented. Rocco had swatted him away. I read Rocco's eyes after a long time. He even wished so, or more likely that's what his eyes read. I thought I was mistaken and maybe I could have. But I saw a shine of the old Rocco. His mind cloud over his eyes had parted for a brief second, revealing the concerned father beneath in the direction of his son. I was ever so thankful to the moon goddess, my faith being restored in her arms. She gave me a sense of hope I hadn't experienced in ages. I was assured she'd never left, never abandoned me in my ways of this cold world. Most of all, she gifted Nora, an angel for my angel. It was only fitting that an angel would be the one to lead my son. She was my hope restorer. Heaven above, make them mates. Even if this angel's destiny was locked with Damon's, I hope their ways cross, that they meet at an intersection, that they let each other, hold each other arms and face the world ahead side by side. Even as mere friends, I hope otherwise. I'd welcome her personally through the borders of our world. For she is my savior as equally as she was for Damon. A teardrop botched the ink, crumb-ained the page around it from wetness. My fingers go to my cheek to feel the sense of moisture, unknowingly shedding tears. I was a savior even if I left like nothing. Turning the page, my stomach sank from spotting the condition of the next entry. It was entirely coarse and bumpy to the touch, dripped up botches of ink smearing the writing, making it nearly impossible to decipher. February 19th, Dear Diary. They're dead. Both of them. Nathan and Camilla. They're dead. There was an uprising from what I heard. Traitors in the pack. Some of closet to Nathan, such as Agama, led the pack to protest and riot. They fought into the farmhouse where Nathan, Camilla in the midst of packing and fleeing that place and going back home. Nathan was first to die from my accounts. Camilla next. Baby Nora was found sleeping soundly in the closet just as the fire had outburst. I had a word with Beta Henry. Henry was the one to break in on time to save Nora after hearing about her from Camilla as she bled to her death. By his accounts, he had safely gotten out with her just as they doused the place before lighting it to flames. He himself, unsure of the details, promised to investigate to his best. Luckily, the boys were safe with his mate by the training fields. I had heard rumors by the kitchen on Geza hours after it had happened, but after learning the truth from Beta ran on his mouth, I cowed and stand. Rocco grew impatient, a ticking time bomb in motion. When Ranon told him about Henry getting custody of the children, he became enraged and began screaming in Italian. Ranon had to walk me out for my own safety as Rocco had begun to trash his study. From what I knew, Rocco only wanted the children's custody so their land would become his. He'd never allow this. I never will. Not to this injustice. Not under my watch. If he cowed and fulfill his duty, it'd honor my friendship with Camilla. I will call Henry to meet and warn him of everything. He must know. What friend would do such a horrifying thing as this with his recently deceased friend? A good handful of the pages were torn from the spine. About 10-12 dozen pages of a deceased person's deceased belonging. If somehow I'd wound up emotional after this, I would use Caden as my dartboard for committing a serious sin. August 19th, Dear Diary. I'm so sorry. 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 I can't express my grievousness for my wrongdoing. I never intended for any of this to happen. It was a mistake. A grave mistake that should never have happened. I killed him. I killed my mate. Rocco S. dead because of me. I killed him. He was pushing too far, talking about how HED kidnapped Nathans and Camilla kids and used them to get the land. I cowed and help it. Even when tilting that lethal dose of wolfsbane into this lunch, I was trembling. I was numb. My brain had froze as my heart in the heat of the moment. I killed Damon's father. I poisoned him in cold blood. You might think I've grown into a murderer after 15 years after the daily abuse. I haven't, but nonetheless, I have left Damon fatherless. Though I have hidden motivate to do what I intend now, I must. Damon's 14 now, and in however many years when he does find his mate, he should be old enough to understand what I did was out of love. I loved Rocco. I loved him too much to let him commit such a sin. I loved him. I'm so sorry.